Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to paint this scene of the Maine coast with lots of gorgeous rocks, because you know me, I love to paint rocks. And we're going to use acrylic paints, but you can use oils, acrylics, or gouache, whatever you happen to prefer that kind of can be applied in layers. Now I'm using golden open acrylics for the majority of my color, except I also have a big puddle of white that is the Chromacryl blockout white that I'm going to be using for my first layer in the sky. The reason I'm doing this is because it's going to dry quicker, and then I'll be able to layer up the slower drying paints and not have to worry about cracking, or also have to worry about kind of reactivating that that sky color. If you would like a real-time narrated tutorial of this, you can find it up in Critique Club. For $5 a month, you get access to over 80 long real-time narrated lessons, a monthly prompt, and I post 2 new lessons every month. Plus, you can upload your artwork for me to critique. I do want to let you know that I'm on vacation this week, so anything uploaded into any of my classes this week will be responded to when I get back on the 20th, I believe is the day. So I just want to let you know that too. If you join up today and you leave a comment, it probably won't be the answered if you're leaving it after Monday. So I just want to get that information out there. So I want to talk a little bit about the golden acrylics. Oh, this is a really quick tip. If you're trying to get a level horizon line, paint something straight like a paint stir stick or a ruler with your paint and stamp it on. That way you can get a perfectly straight horizon line, and you can wipe that paint right off your ruler. Or you could just keep an old plastic, school ruler handy for that sort of application if you're worried about ruining a nice one. But it's a really great way to get a horizon line. So golden open acrylics are an acrylic that is designed to stay wetter longer, and it will actually stay wet to the touch. It's workable for about 2 hours, at least in my experience. And keep in mind that I'm in Maine. It's a fairly humid environment. It's cool, and I work in a basement, so your time may vary if you live someplace that's a little bit more arid. But it's just a wonderful paint if you like to work with oils, but you don't want to deal with oils, the cleanup, the smell, the super long drying time. These will be dry to the touch overnight. I did have some areas, like especially if you use, I noticed the more transparent colors like alizarin crimson, phthalo blue, phthalo green, those colors will stay wet longer, but generally you can layer up again the following day, which is perfect. It's really perfect for me because I love working with oils, but sometimes you still need to wait a few days before you can layer up with them. So I just find this to be just a wonderful medium. And you can go over your traditional acrylics if you have a bunch of acrylics, and you can even mix these with your other acrylics, but you're going to reduce the open time of them. So just something to kind of consider. They are fairly close in price with other comparable artist grade acrylics, maybe $1 or $2 a tube more. So I just want to kind of give you the heads up on that. But what I did to be a little more economical is I purchased I started off by purchasing the Modern Color set, which was, I got it at AC Moore before they went out of business with a coupon. So I paid about $16, and that was for 6 smaller tubes. And I think they're 21 ml tubes in those little sets. And then I liked those so much that I ordered the traditional set of 6, which the only duplicate color they had was titanium white, which was fine because I was using that up pretty well. I think I got that on Blick for about to 22 or something like that. I think they're running around $25, $26 right now, those sets. And that would be my recommendation if you want to try these paints, because the individual tubes, the 2-ounce tubes, go from like $8 to $20 or so on Blick. So I would definitely recommend starting with one of those introductory sets that has the colors that you're most likely to use, and see if you like it first, because it is kind of pricey, just like any artist grade material. And you want to make sure it's going to work for you, because something that's perfect for one artist won't be perfect for somebody else. If you're a faster painter than me, these might stay wet way too long and be frustrating and not worth the expense. But if you're someone who loves oils but can't work with oils anymore due to the smell or due to the cleanup, and for whatever reason you don't like water mixable oils, or you want something that dries a little faster than water mixable oils, these might be a really great option for you. And to be honest, they're really the only acrylic paints I like to paint with. Like I'll use acrylics and crafts and for like underpainting and things like that. But the actual experience of painting a painting, these are the only paints I really love. And I do need to, and I'm still on those 2 6-color introductory sets. I want to purchase a tube of titanium white, so I have more of that, and also yellow ochre and burnt sienna, because those weren't in either of those sets. And so I'm mixing a lot of an ochre color, and I would much rather have a single pigment yellow ochre acrylic for this. But yeah, I'm really happy with those introductory sets, and I think I would just start off with one of them if you're not sure. See what you think after you've painted a few paintings, and then expand on from there. But I found that both of those sets had really good color selections. You could mix a lot of things from them, and yeah, really well thought out. I thought those 2 6-color sets were better than like their larger tube sets, personally, for my opinion anyway. You might be different, so look at them all. Might as well look at them all, research before you purchase. So as you can see, I'm just kind of blocking stuff in. I find that like using a palette knife can be a really handy way to get some abstract chunky shapes for rocks. Also using a large flat brush. Now I want to talk about the brushes that I like to use for acrylics or gouache, because they're not expensive, they last really well, and if you take care of your brushes, this is they're going to last you pretty well. And I find that if your paint isn't drying in your brushes super quick with these more open acrylics, that you have plenty of time to get them washed out. But a brush care tip I will give you is that when you're painting with acrylics, or with any paint really, try to keep the paint on the lower half of the bristles. Try there to be a bristle gap between your paint and the ferrule. Once you start getting paint up into that metal area, that's where you start to wear out your brush, because it dries in there and then it splays your bristles out, so you don't get a sharp edge anymore. So that's my first tip. Don't let the paint touch the ferrule. Keep it on the bottom half of your bristles if you can. And then just when you're done painting for the day, wash it out with soap and water. That's really the best thing to do. But my brush recommendations are the Zen All Media brushes by Royal and Langnickel. They're very affordable. If you buy them open stock, I think they're about $4 a piece, maybe less for smaller sizes, or you can buy them in money-saving sets. And they're available at most of your big box craft stores too, so it's not like you have to special order them or anything. So that would be the Zen All Media from Royal and Langnickel. I also like Royal and Langnickel's soft grip brushes. And another thing that I like, and the Menta All Media, but they're harder to find, but they're pretty close to the Zen. And the thing I like about those 3 brushes is that the handles are plastic. They're like an acrylic plastic. So when you're working with acrylics, if you can't get to washing those brushes out and you're letting them sit in water, not a great idea, but it's better than letting them dry out on your table, or you forget about washing your brush, or maybe you're a mom like me, maybe your kids are younger and you get distracted and you go to help them with something and you forgot that you left paint brushes in the water, and then you find them the next day. The nice thing about the plastic handles is that they're not going to swell and chip and come loose. So if you have like a wooden handled brush and you leave it in the water by mistake, and a lot of your more expensive finer brushes are wood handled and they're varnished, water seeps underneath the ferrule and gets into the wood. The wood swells, it cracks the varnish, so the paint starts peeling off, and because it swells and contracts within the metal ferrule, the ferrule comes loose, the glue comes loose, it gets wiggly and annoying, and you've got to re-glue it or re-crimp it, and yeah, it's just kind of a pain, and then your brushes look bad. And if that bothers you, then just go for the acrylic handles, the plastic handle brushes. And I like those 3 lines. I think they're quite affordable and easy to find. So that would be my recommendation. The soft grips are great if you have any carpal tunnel or arthritis or any sort of fatigue from using brushes for a long time. So another way that I like to do rocks, jumping back to the rocks, you can see we're starting to sculpt some form here using big flat brushes and small flat brushes, and just like chunky brushes that I can just kind of slap different shapes down helps me from getting too fussy with the detail. Because really, when you're painting rocks, like the coastal rocks in Maine, you're seeing just piles and piles and piles of glacier-driven rocks that have just kind of been basically shoved and cracked and crumbled together from like glacial shifts, and it's just it's almost abstract. You see just just abstract masses. And if you paint those abstract masses, if you just kind of go back and forth between your reference photo or your photograph, or if you're standing out in real life and you just can kind of spend more time looking at the scene in front of you than you're painting, and just paint those chunky shapes you see, even if it doesn't like make sense that this is a rock, you're just putting those forms and shapes down, you're going to have more realistic rocks. I know it sounds crazy. Look for the colors that you see. Look for the way the light bends around the shapes of the rocks, and the light bounces off the shapes of the rocks, and the shadows kind of suck out the light. You're going to see purples, you're going to see reds and yellows and gold when you get the beautiful low light in the sky. You're going to see all of these gorgeous colors in the atmosphere kind of trapped and scattered by the mica in the rocks and the granite, and it's really magical. But you've got to just let go of what you think a rock looks like, and you need to trust what you actually see with your eyeballs, and you're going to paint the most dynamic, magnificent rocks you have ever seen. But you got to let go of perfection, and you got to let go with what your brain is telling you a rock looks like, and you just have to experience it and observe it, and then just put what you see down on paper. Something else I wanted to mention here, I'm using a little table easel, and if you don't have a table easel, all you have to do is find like a piece of cardboard or foam core or a scrap of plywood, maybe even an old board game you don't play anymore, something that's a rigid backing, and then just prop it up on some books. You don't need to have anything fancy. Honestly, you want to be comfortable when you're painting. And when you work with the golden open acrylics, they're quite glossy. They're a lot like painting with oil paints. So if you're used to regular acrylics that kind of are a little, or gouache that's a little more matte, that can kind of throw you off. Now, you see when I laid that flat, how the trees look shiny? This is actually the next day. The trees are still wet because they had the phthalo green and the alizarin crimson and the phthalo blue, those more transparent colors. They stay wetter longer. So you can see there's glare there. So in order for you to paint and judge your values accurately, you want to be able to prop that up. Also to keep you from hunching over your painting, because you don't want to, when we paint, we lose track of time, and we get in the zone, we get in that flow state, and we don't realize we've been hunching over like the Hunchback of Notre Dame for like 3 hours on a painting. So you want to make sure you stay comfortable. And also by tipping up that painting, you're going to, especially if you have overhead lights, you're going to reduce that glare so you're actually seeing your values. Now, I let this dry overnight so my rocks could set up enough that I would be able to go in and paint some of the dark cracks and fissures and shadows between the rocks, and also some of the scattered shadows that I was seeing kind of grazing across some of the rocks. Man, I love to paint rocks. So nothing finer, dear. I'm painting rocks in Maine. So I was just having a ball with this, and I'm actually using a dagger brush, and don't tell anyone, but I'm using my watercolor dagger brush for my brand new watercolor set prototypes, but I couldn't find another synthetic dagger, so don't do that. Don't do as I do. Don't use your watercolor brush for acrylics. I just couldn't help it. I needed a dagger brush, and that one was handy. But it worked really good for these dark shadows. I used some Mars brown. I used some blue. I use both phthalo and ultramarine mixed with the Quin rose, and I got some really luscious shadows that just they make those rocks just come to life. It gives them the nice deep shadows. I just love it. And throwing some like cast shadows across some of them, throwing in some little cracks and nooks and crannies and crevices, and just enjoying the process. It was so fun. You can see I'm lifting up my painting here with my other hand because I need to make sure I'm not seeing glare as I put these highlights down. I want to make sure I'm seeing the colors as they actually are. So if it's would bother you to hold it up like that with one hand, grab whatever's handy. Grab a jar or a roll of tape, chuck that under the back of your canvas, give that a little elevation, and you'll be good. I also like to move my canvas around so I'm pulling strokes towards myself, and I just love that buttery highlight. It's a mixture of a few colors, dirty colors on my palette because I didn't have yellow ochre, but you could use yellow ochre and white if you had it. And I'm just working on the corner of my brush as I get further away from the bigger highlights. And then I'm switching to a smaller brush and having the highlights a little bit duller because I don't want to compete with those gorgeous close-up focal rocks in the front of my painting. And I'm really just enjoying the way this is coming together. This painting took me about an hour and 15 minutes in real time, and you will see every bit of that real-time footage in the Critique Club lesson if you want to check it out over at lindsayweirich.teachable.com. I'll have a link in the video description if you want to find that. Now, a tip that I like to make greens pop is to paint something red next to them. So putting in these little red bushes next to those pine trees really makes the pine trees seem more vibrant, because you put opposite colors next to each other, they make each other pop. You mixed opposite colors together and they neutralize. So it's kind of a fun little color theory thing to learn and thing to try, because just like our yellow highlights really make those purple shadows pop on our rocks. So playing with those contrasts really can elevate your work and make it exciting. And honestly, just play and practice. The canvas I'm working on is an inexpensive 11-inch by 11-inch canvas. I think I picked it up at Michael's in one of the value packs. Honestly, that's how I buy my canvases now, generally in those multi-packs, because they're cheap. I usually work with oils or these open acrylics, and even if the surface is a little rough, it glides. These paints just glide on them, so I don't have to worry and resand, regesso, any of that jazz. Now, granted, they're not as nice as Frederick's canvases, but for these studies like this, they're just fine. They're perfect. They're perfect for what I need them for, and they're very affordable. So they go on sale every once in a while, and I'll snag them when they go on sale if I have room to store them. I try not to hoard or get too ahead of myself, but my daughters like to paint with acrylics on canvas, so they get used. But that's it. I really love how this came out. It was so much fun to paint, and I appreciate you watching this. And if you'd like to check it out in real time, check out the link in the video description for the class in Critique Club. It gives you access to everything once you are a member, and it's only $5 a month, and you can cancel anytime. I want to thank you so much for watching today. Please give me a thumbs up before you go. Until next time, happy crafting.